Hi, this is Communication and Management Communication in 4. We are busy with a module on interviewing, and today it's all about employment or job interviews. The purpose of an employment interview is twofold. So why do you need to be interviewed before you can get a job? Generally, it is so that the best possible candidate can be chosen to do the job, the best person, the best fit for the job. But you don't just look at the abilities or the skills of the person, you also look at whether they will fit into the culture of the organization and whether they can work under pressure or things like that. So specifically in a job interview, the interviewer has to get enough information from the interviewee to see if he or she will fit into the organization, like I said, and have the necessary skills to do the job that they are applying for. Employers get this information by asking questions that are planned beforehand, pre planned like that, as well as questions that's based on the CV that the interviewee or the applicant used to apply for the job. So later on in this module, we will look at how to draft the perfect CV so that it's easy for the employer and the employee to work around that during an interview. The role of the interviewer. We are first going to look at the interviewer, and here, especially your human resource management students should listen, but everybody else, because you could just be the manager of a department one day, and then you have to interview possible candidates to work in your department. So before the interview, you should do a number of things. And first of that is that you should dress appropriately. You should remember that clothing is a type of non-verbal communication, and it communicates a lot about yourself as a manager as well as your company to the applicant. So this applicant can read your dedication and hardworkingness, or what do you call it, through what you are wearing. So make sure that you are dressed appropriately before an interview. Secondly, you must make sure that the venue where the interview is going to take place, whether it be in a boardroom or in an office, that this venue is prepared, that all phones are removed or taken off the hook, that the phones are switched off if the cell phones are present, that the lighting isn't too dark, that it's not too hot or too cold. You must make sure that there's a glass of water, the table is clean, and all those things. Just make sure that the venue is conducive or appropriate for an interview setup. Thirdly, the interviewer must draft the questions that they will ask during the interview, and they must draft these questions according to we will look at types of questions um, in the next lesson, and you will see the purposes of these questions. So the interviewer will list the questions that they are going to ask beforehand to avoid looking incompetent, and also to know what they want from the interviewee during the interview. Lastly, the interviewer must work out a schedule, and they must stick to the schedule to make sure that each applicant or interviewee has enough time and has a suitable amount of time to convey their message, or to have time to persuade during this interview time. I'm sorry, just yeah. So anyway, the interviewer must draw up the schedule and must make sure that he or she sticks to it. Lastly, the interviewer must go through the CVs beforehand and make notes where necessary. As you will see in the next lesson, that some of the questions must be based on the CV. So it is important to get to know a little bit about the applicant before they come in front of you so that you can know what information to confirm with the applicant. So now the interview starts. During the interview, the following should be done by the interviewer. You should ask prepared questions in a concise and clear manner. By concise, we mean by not using unnecessary words, by using simple words. And it must be clear. It mustn't have double meaning, ambiguity, and things like that. So don't try to trip up the interviewee by using big words or confuse them by using fancy language or things like that, because that will just make them nervous and you won't get a clear, realistic depiction or view of who they really are. The interviewer should be aware of non-verbal communication. A frown could indicate that the interviewee did not understand the question, could shake their head, they could lick their lips, and they are maybe thirsty, so offer them a glass of water or something like that. So, but you must always remember that verbal communication is always underwritten by non-verbal communication, which can tell you so much more than the words that are being spoken. So if you have to take notes, which is probably the right thing to do, or it is the right thing to do if you're not recording, if you take notes, don't be obvious. You will make the interviewee or the applicant very nervous if you have to write down something after everything they said. So make notes, but be inconspicuous about it. Okay? Please allow room for the candidate to ask questions. Don't think that because they asked you to clarify a question that they are substandard. It may be that there are semantic barriers in place. Please allow the candidate to ask more, and you can also sort of judge a candidate on the type of questions that they ask, because that will show a willingness to partake, a curiosity, a willingness to learn, and that might just be the candidate that you are looking for. So in the next lesson, we will talk about the types of questions that are asked in an interview. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this lesson. My email address is still yufkeister@gmail.com. You can go to my Google Classroom, use the code XCGXURR to access supporting notes as well as self-assessment questions, among other things. And until next time, that's the end of this one. Bye.